Hello, I welcome you all to this e-content on a revision of Excluding Byzantium on objections to living near a home for the elderly sick, which is an overview uh, I'm planning to do right over here. This is necessary because, as usual, you are away from home, away from the college. We do not know when academics is going to resume, but then we need to keep in touch with our studies and examinations, right? So I thought that I would plan out and then send you this video through LMS. All right, right. So what we are going to basically do is that we're going to run real quick into what we had did already in the class. You could right now see in the screen that I'm using the same PPT for you. So the first question that arises when we look at the poem written by Li Zufeng, excluding Byzantium, the word Byzantium that catches our eyes, right? So by one way or the other, Li Zufeng is trying to exclude Byzantium, whatever that is, and whatever that is what we are going to look at or analyze right now. So what is Byzantium basically? So any people who are not literature students probably might be knowing what Byzantium is. And of course, Byzantium is an allusion that has been created here by W.B. Yeats, actually, right? So we should know that Li Zufeng is only making use of the Byzantium, which W.B. Yeats uses in his two poems actually. One is Byzantium, the other one is Sailing to Byzantium. The second poem, Sailing to Byzantium, is much more popular, and Byzantium is a sister poem of Sailing to Byzantium in the same way, in the same manner, using probably very few themes from Sailing to Byzantium and Byzantium of W.B. Yeats. Li Zufeng carries forward the same allusion that W.B. Yeats is trying to make here. So, what is Byzantium? Byzantium is a place, right? Now, Byzantine Empire, which had existed between the years 330 AD to 1453 AD. You might very well know that if at all you're fond of games like Age of Empires, Clash of Clans, and so many other historical setting strategy games, you might have there is a very huge possibility that you might have heard this term Byzantine, right? So Byzantine is a civilization. It's a Christian civilization. Now the Byzantine Empire is a part of the Roman Empire, right? So the Roman Empire was, in other terms, called as Byzantine Empire, especially the Eastern Empire, right? So today Byzantium or Byzantine is nothing but Turkey, right? But then it is again an mythical fantasy place, right? It is not any singular place on the map, but then it talks about the whole empire, right? So now Byzantine Empire springs from this idea that let's go back, to a thousand five hundred years when you're talking about this Byzantine Empire by the start of 330 AD, right? The Roman Empire, which was in its peak, was divided into the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire, right? Now, by the attack of the Muslims in the Mediterranean region, somehow, somewhere, the Eastern Roman Empire and the Western Roman Empire got split, right? So there was a break in the middle. So you have Africa, and then there was a break in the middle. So the Eastern Roman Empire had the country, I mean the place called Constantinople as their capital. So that is how we know the king who ruled over the Eastern Roman Empire by the year 1453 during its fall, right? So if you did your history of English literature in your first semester, you might very well remember that 1453 is a very significant year in the history of English literature because 1453, the fall of Constantinople and the dominoes effect that it had created had given birth to the English Renaissance at least 150 years later in UK, right, in United Kingdom or the British land. All right. Now, Byzantium is a place which is seen as its cultural peak, right? And it is always imagined to be in the peak of its existence, right? So if some place is in the peak of its existence, what are the things you could what are the things you could expect about it? You could expect that there is a lot of money, there is democracy, right? People are living their life happily. And if people are living their life happily, what are the things that could come as an effect of it? And of course literature, right? So literature will spring up in places only where there is calm, right? So you imagine that if there is war all over the country, do you really think that there's going to be birth of literature? Definitely not, right? So Byzantium was a place of cultural prosperity, literary prosperity, and social prosperity as well, right? So that is the idea of Byzantium, which W.B. Yeats introduced to us. Right. So what are the things that comes in our mind? So what are the other, manifold things we could think about Byzantium? The first thing is that W.B. Yeats had long been an admirer of Byzantine art and culture and wanted to combine this passion with his belief in the spiritual journey of the artistic human soul, right? So according to the belief of W.B. Yeats, if at all a person and his soul right after his death is supposed to be led into a spiritual journey, meaning that he or she should be should have a pakka passion which is for art, right? The passion should be for art. So if at all that happens, their human soul would have a spiritual journey, something what you could compare as mukti in the Hindu beliefs, all right? So as you know that Byzantium and Sailing to Byzantium are sister poems, right? The next thing is that W.B. Yeats in his poems, he thinks that the country he comes from, and that is exactly the point of about which why he starts to write these poems, right? In the first place, he thinks that the place which he comes from do not have enough respect for the old people, right? And that is why he is sailing to Byzantium, where his passion for literature, his literary artifact, the artifacts he had created, literary artifacts he had created, would be respected, right? But then back in his own country, he is not being respected, and that is one of the reasons he wants to sail to Byzantium, ditching his own place, right? So he has to travel the country of the young and travel to Byzantium. So you could kind of think that young people today, they do not respect art as much, right? And then they do not respect old people as much. So these are the two pointers, minor pointers you could take about from W.B. Yeats in this point, right? The next point is that Byzantium to Yeats is the place where sages could become the singing masters of his soul, right? So these are all lines which he takes straight away from the line I have quoted it to you here, singing masters of his soul, right? So Byzantium is a place where even sages, right? So you could imagine certain fantasy place where sages, with their literary talent, they come and sing to you. It's all culturally prosperous and literary wise prosperous, right? So it's bustling with activities like this. Even the sages sing, right? And singing to the soul. So when the sages sing to the soul, what is the result that could happen? What is the effect that would happen? That in his older life, W.B. Yeats, after hearing from the sages who sing to him, right, his soul would make a spiritual journey, right? So he hopes that the sages will appear and take him away from his body into an existence outside time, where, like a great work of art, he could exist in the artifice of everything. Meaning, if he continues to be in his own place, it may not be possible for him to, continue to write poetry. He may not get an inspiration even after he writes poetry. After getting inspiration, it may not be respected by the young people. But then, but then, right, the body, which can wither away, but then the art created by people, created by especially by W. Yeats, right? It would not wither away, right? It would stand the test of time. It would be a classic, right? That is his thought. So if at all that has to happen, if his work of art has to be secure, he has to travel to Byzantium, right? So Yeats has a fascination for artificial, which is superior than natural things, right? So when you go through the poems of W.B. Yeats, Byzantium and sailing to Byzantium, if you could read secondary sources from it, you could get a little, a little clue about what Li Zufeng is trying to do, borrowing the idea of W.B. Yeats. Now, let us move on to the poem by W.B. Yeats. We are not going to look at it in detail, but then I'm just going to show you, in your screens right now. Look at that. I have only highlighted the first line of the poem itself. You know, by the class lectures we have had, that this is the foremost and very significant line that Li Zufeng in her poem Excluding Byzantium uses to reiterate a fact, right? So you know, obviously what the fact is, but then we are going to look at it once again. So the line is this: that is no country for old men, right? Now that is a demonstrative term, right? Now W.B. Yeats is not present through the poem, but then he makes his own connections and then tries to tell you that what does he mean by that. So what is that, right? So which is no country for old men. Now, by the previous explanations I had given you, that country means his own country, the country which disrespects a older guy like him, right? So they do not just disrespect an older guy like him. It is seen as a collective thing, right? So young people think they are in the center of everything, right? And then the older people, they are looked at somebody who should be kept in a museum, more or less like an artifact. And this is exactly the same feeling W.B. Yeats has, right? So he thinks that he is an artifact who should be kept in a museum, but then the young people do not know the value of the artifact they are, the older people are, right? So that is the line we are going to start with in looking at this. All right. So moving on. So you could also, you could later, download the poem Sailing to Byzantium and Byzantium, and then make a comparative study of both these poems so that you try and have a better understanding. Now, without any further delay, we are going to look at the poem itself. I'm going to just run through and then, explain to you only things that I think they are really necessary for me to explain it to you, right? So look at that. Like the poem Byzantium, Li Zufeng. Now we are at the Li Zufeng's text. We are not doing the W.B. Yeats text. We are here in the Li Zufeng's text. Li Zufeng starts with this significant line: "That is no country for old men," right? She is making a reference again to Byzantium, right? But then remember the title of the text itself, Excluding Byzantium. So you should keep in mind that Li Zufeng is not being literal about it, right? She is just trying to start a conversation with the readers, saying that that is no country for old men. The aging poet meant another place, right? So she straight away wants to make an argument saying that the aging poet meant another place. Who's the aging poet? Obviously, W.B. Yeats, right? So she would like to counter argue with W.B. Yeats that maybe, right? Maybe uh, W.B. Yeats did not mean this place, right? His country, but some other place, right? Maybe that older people should not go to Byzantium, right? Maybe they should go to some other place, right? Okay, so that's the way it is, right? So we moving on. The body contemptible, incompatible with the passions of the mind, right? So you obviously know that these two lines give you a understanding of how old people are, right? We ourselves see old people around us, right? So contemptible and incompatible, right? Their age has passed, right? Their health is going down, right? Their physical ability is going down, right? So the mind is working faster than ever because and you always hear this dialogue, right? My my experience is your age, right? So the age is given them the experience, but then our age is very little, the young people's age is very little, right? So their mind is thinking very fast, but then the body is not able to cope with the passions of the mind, right? Okay. It is easier somehow to bear such ostracism. Art has the compensation of its own realities, right? So, what is this ostracism Li Feng is talking about? She is trying to consider the possibility that maybe, right, maybe if young people do not respect older people, maybe that they should go to Byzantium. Maybe that art can be seen as a compensation, right? So you remember the example I gave to you in class, right? So you could see music as an art form, wherein if at all you have you're upset, right? You're feeling irritated. Let's say that you go on, turn YouTube, or go to your phone, and then turn on some music, and then you want to spend some time away from the problem, right, for a moment, right? So you're using that music as a compensation to the reality, right? Now, even then, Li Feng is not surely saying that this should happen, but then it could happen, it may happen, right? It's because she's using the a term somehow, right? So art can mold pain into singing birds and scarecrows image saints in holy fires, right? So these are all these two lines are references in slide number 15. The last two lines are direct references from W.B. Yeats' poem. All right. Outside of art, what consolations thrive, right? So again, a question, a counter argument. If W.B. Yeats thinks that art would give you consolation, outside of art, what consolations thrive, right? Outside of art, what consolations can you go behind art all the time for consolation, right? So that's the idea. Decapitude may push you to the side of life. Sickness can make a stranger of the best loved face, right? So why does Li Feng say all these things? You could look at or observe older people around you. Not all the time they are you could see that there is a curve, right? You could say the age curve, right? So when we are in our 40s, we are in the best of our time, and then from 40s, our capabilities go down, right? So we raise, the graph raises from 0 to 40, and then at 40 we reach our peak, and then again we go down, right? So by the time we are 80, we are back into becoming children once again. So these are the old people W.B. Yeats is talking about, meaning sickness can make a stranger of the best love face, right? Even the best loved face they have can make a stranger. So think about disease like the Alzheimer, right? You have memory loss, right? Mortality is a monster, something better relegated to a hidden place, right? So mortality is a monster in the sense, mortality is the idea of the cell decomposing and dying away, right? Or in other terms, biologically, we could say that it is the death of a person, right? So death, immortality, sometimes you could think that mortality becomes a monster, right? Some people think that we could go away, hide from death, right? Hide from becoming old, but then it never happens in your life, right? So one way or the other, you will have to confront with this monster in your life. Hospices and nursing homes may reek of worse than age, a lingering pulp, sour the taste of all human endeavor, right? So in your bubbling life, when you're 40, you could be a CEO of the company, you could be the owner of Google, you could be the owner of Facebook, you could be, the most richest man in the world. All these things, when you are aged, what do they become? They sour, right? They sour in the sense they become of different taste. When you're 40, when you're enjoying life, they're enjoying the luxuries of life, it's very sweet, right? But then when the old age comes, it's sour, right? It sours the taste of all human endeavor. All your human endeavor looks zero, looks null, right? That's the idea being given here. It takes much more than empathy, perhaps, to receive the aged sick into our midst, without protest, even unvoiced, while life points us to our unexpected end, right? So Li Zufeng is trying to convince that go and look at the hospitals, go and look at nursing homes. You will be convinced that one day you are also going to be this fold, right? And that is exactly why old people need much more than empathy. They do not need just empathy, they need something much more than empathy, right? So when we need much more than empathy, what are the things we need? We need to receive the aged sick into our midst. So what is the problem here? It is not the problem of being old aged alone. It is the problem of being old aged and the disease that comes along with it, right? So how many of us have the patience to deal with the aged and the sick? Right, because we should. That's what That's what Lisa Feng is trying to convince us. She's trying to say that because it is also going to be our unexpected end, right? It comes to you when you do not know about it or when you are not expecting it, right? How many will have art to keep them safe? Look at the question, right? How many will have art to keep them safe, right? Maybe today, right? You like a very famous song, you hear it in loop again and again, right? Maybe today, when you are irritated about something, you hear the song, maybe that it will cheer you up, right? Can you do this for another 10 years? Can you do this another 15 years, right? Maybe the song will change, right? 10 years later the song will change, right? But how long do you think that the songs, right, the same thing, the art, right, the materials that could keep you safe, right? And that's a very important question being asked by Li Zufeng, right? Next line. How many are to house our grim reminders, right? This is another wonderful significant question, right? Even though if you think that something very grim should not be reminded to you, so you try to push it away from your mind. So in order to push it away from your mind, what do? You go and listen to a song which will cheer you up, right? So how many grim reminders will you have in your 80 years old, right? And then if when you are 80 years old, if you have so many grim reminders, sad reminders, right, irritating reminders, how many songs would you have to listen to send those grim reminders out of your mind, right? Is it measurable? Can you put a value at it? And that is exactly the question Li Zufeng is trying to ask the readers, right? We know we but banish ourselves to claim this is no country for old men. Now, this is what Li Zufeng is trying to convey to us. She tries to say that even Byzantium is not a place where old people could go. Even they are being sent away from that particular place, right? They don't even feel comfortable in that particular place, and that is the idea of the poem itself, right? Thank you for listening.